This is ACDC, Araceli and Colette, the dynamics change. And my name is Araceli. I'm a transition wealth advisor, and I help single professional women rearrange their finances so they can pay the debt quicker and retire early. And I'm here with my partner, Colette. Colette, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Colette Rabba, and I am a residential real estate broker in the GTA. I like to work with everybody, but we can't really say that. I really actually really like working with buyers because they have really great questions all the time. And I feel that in this industry, we really need people like myself to answer these questions for people to make the best decisions for them. It's not about me. It's not about you, Araceli. It's about the home buyer. And that's what we're here for. And we have a great question today.
And it's something that doesn't come up very often, but it's out there. And I just want you to be aware of. And it's something that is called a vendor take back. And if you've heard the term, some people don't know what it is, how can you do it, and so on, right?
Yeah, and the funny thing too is when we have people saying, oh, I want to buy money with no money down, and we kind of get some crazy questions, like that. And yeah, it's possible, but vendor take back is one of those things that a lot of people don't really realize that it's an option. And you know what? If you don't ask, it's always no. So why not ask? So why don't we go through what a vendor take back mortgage is first, shall we?
Yeah.
So it's actually a vendor take back. For whatever reason, they forget the one word, which is a take back mortgage. So I'm just going to tell you what it is basically. A vendor take back mortgage enables the seller of a property to become the lender for the new buyer. So a vendor take back mortgage provides an option when traditional mortgages are maybe not an option. And then the seller wishes to offer an incentive to a buyer. So it might not, obviously every circumstance is different, but when a buyer and a seller might consider it and they want to take advantage of that situation to sell their house.
And that's correct. So that is one of the options. And let me tell you why. I do have some experience with that, putting those together. And there is many reasons why somebody would want to do a vendor take back.
Yeah.
From the seller perspective is if you do have a house that you don't really need the cash flow, you don't need anything like that, and you're almost ready to retire, one of the things that you can do is put a vendor take back. And basically you become the bank. And this person, you can negotiate the terms. It's not like a conventional bank. So you go there and you have to put a 5% down or a 20% down. Otherwise they'll charge you, the mortgage insurance default. And so there's many things that you have to do. Sometimes, let's say, family that you want to put them on that contract because you want to help them out. You may want to accept less than the conventional down payment and then put the rest of it on payments. And you can also decide how much interest you're going to charge them as well, right?
And this is a benefit for the seller as well, because if they're going to make a little income now, to generate this little bit of interest on top of whatever the home buyer is going to pay, then they're acting as the lender, which is quite nice. And this is the thing too, when you have that it's got to be the perfect storm, like the seller has to be willing to do this, but also the buyer has to be willing to do this. And the paperwork, can we just both agree that the paperwork has to be very, very specific about stuff like this?
Correct. Everything has to be very clear. Normally, it's just imagine that you're buying a property, but instead of getting the mortgage from the bank, you're getting the mortgage from this person. But you still have to have a contract saying that agree on the price, how long they're going to hold the mortgage for. If it is a term, let's say after 5 years, you got to get a conventional mortgage yourself, or they're going to continue to hold the mortgage for you. All of this has to be stipulated, as well as what is left in the house. do you keep the appliances, or do you have to pay extra for it? Anything that has been there, you gotta ask. All of these conditions, they need to be in the contract.
Right. And not, and that, as well as, you know, what happens if there's a default? What happens? Who stays on title? Does the original seller stay on title? Do you share title? So all these things have to be discussed with the lawyer, mortgage broker, real estate agent. If you do want somebody to sort of facilitate, you know, I'm not sure if a mediator would do something, a legal mediator, if they would do something like
I'm
that.
not sure, because really this kind of transactions are very, very private.
Yeah.
I don't see them very often, but they are there and they're available. And we just want to tell you, like, if you do have access to someone that may be willing to help you with that, we can facilitate something like that, because it's an option. Also, another thing for the buyer is, if they're selling you the house in stages, if that is a property that is an income property, therefore they're going to have to pay taxes on that when they sell it, they can claim taxes as they go along. So that's another thing, that it's benefit for the seller. The majority of the times, the property remains in the seller's name, because in
Yeah.
case of a default, then the seller will take over the property again. Of course, you know, you got to negotiate anything, just like you would do with your bank if
Sure.
there is a problem with your income or anything like that.
So almost, I want to say a vendor take back is almost not exactly like a rent to own situation.
It's a little bit different, yes.
Yeah, it could be very similar, but I
Yeah.
think paperwork is a little more solid, or a little bit more towards the buyer's preference, or not preference, but you know what I mean? It's a little bit more even than a rent to own is more skewed to the landlord. The landlord will always keep title, will always hold the reins
Yeah.
in a rent to own situation. So vendor take back, I don't hear it a lot in Canada. I hear it more that it's happening a lot in the States.
And the States happens a lot more.
Right, but
Maybe because of the prices, but it can happen here. Now, one thing that is a really good thing for the buyer is that, if, let's say that you had a problem with credit.
yes,
Let's say that you're a couple and one of you have good credit, but the other doesn't have a credit. And without the two of you, you would not qualify at the bank. That
yes,
would be a very good solution to do a vendor take back, because you benefit from not getting to be looked at what your credit score is. It's
right,
basically based on the relationship that you have with the owner of the property. So it is very important, obviously, you know, if you do have that kind of situation, it might get you into the market without going through waiting, let's say for 2 or 3 years, that if you have come bankrupt, or you're working on improving your credit,
sure.
that you have to wait, because, you know, houses here, at least in the GTA, they continue to go up, right? So
Right, and that's the thing too. If you have that perfect storm of seller and buyer really agreeing on that, that's something that, you know, can really be beneficial for both parties. So, and because interest rates are so low right now, if this seller has this great interest rate and they can bump it up whatever percentage you decide on, I don't want to say
yeah.
what's okay or what's not okay, but to really agree on that bump up, really to be able to get in the market and still have a great mortgage rate. Like, I remember years ago, we bought our first house, we were paying 12%, 15%,
Yeah,
something like that.
that was,
I know
can
people
you
were paying
imagine?
more than that. So really, our mentality of always having, for the last, let's say 10 years, it's been 5% or under.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, we're really, really lucky. So even if you think of it in that perspective as a buyer, to say, okay, let's do it under take back, that homeowner, they might own their house. So the stipulation too, as far as you know, what kind of a seller can do this,
Yeah.
is somebody who either owns their house outright, or someone who has a mortgage currently, and they can do this with their bank. I would really talk to an accountant to make sure that this can be done legally, and what the right ways are. Also, we were talking a little bit about corporate gains taxes. If this isn't their you know, primary residence, So these are all little things that talk to your accountants first, talk to your lawyer first,
Yeah.
figure it all out, get a really good ironclad uh, agreement, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, remember, there's always ways to do transactions, and it might not be just the normal way that most people know about it, but you got to be a little bit creative, and especially during these times that not everybody has enough income to prove to the bank because
Right,
maybe you're a self-employed.
right.
And normally people that are self-employed, they have a lot of expenses, so their income looks like it's less than what they're actually making. And it's, the bank sees it as a risk, and therefore either they will give you a really high interest if they approve you, or
Right.
they basically will not approve you. So you might have to go to a B lender, and or a private lender, which the terms are really, really stringent and very expensive to get into it. So this might be an opportunity for you to get into the market at a lower price or a lower interest rate, and with
You can
benefit to
just get
sellers.
in. You can
Yeah.
just get in. The other thing too is your down payment. So the down payment too, the banks want to see a very specific number. And if you don't have that, if you're short, even by a few $1,000s, it's a no. It's a no.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, the other thing what I wanted to say too, like there are people that either have not such good credit, but also people that have more money already invested. So they have collateral.
Yeah.
They might not have a huge income. So this again, the banks don't like this right now. They're really, I really think that the banks are trying hard to keep people from overspending. As Canadians, we are. I want to believe, and I want to say, sometimes you might disagree with me, that Canadians are a little bit more, cautious with spending, or they're a little bit more conservative with their spending versus, let's say, in the States, in the US, but also the banks. Like we can't have that happen, what happened in the States a few years ago, with the people going.
Absolutely. You know what? I think that the lending in the U.S. at least a few years ago, when all the crash happened,
Right.
in my opinion, somebody must have known that if you're lending money to someone that does not have enough income, therefore it's a really high
It's
risk to
right.
default.
Something's going to happen. Right.
Correct. But
Yeah.
however, on the other hand, here in Canada, I think we're going the other direction. They want you to prove this, and where the money come from, how long you've had it, how are you going to be moving forward. And now they want to also approve you with a higher interest rate to distress this in case the interest go up, can you afford
Right.
it? So
You have to
all of those
qualify.
other things, I know it is good for the system in Canada, but
Yeah.
it's making it very, very difficult for people to get into the market, because one way or another, either you don't have enough down payment, or you don't have good enough credit, or don't have credit at all. Because if you're fairly new into the country as well, you don't have, even though you have a job, you may not have the perfect credit that the bank is looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. I really feel that the banks are being really hard on people and not looking at the whole picture. They look at the one thing that they want to look at, or what they think this is what we need to qualify. Also with COVID, I mean, this is the other thing too, that
Yeah.
it's kind of like an unwritten rule, or and when we have our mortgage broker on next, this is something else that we can talk about regarding COVID, and how do the banks look at people who have possible jobs in those certain fields like event planning, or the airlines, things like that, that we know these kinds of jobs are not going to be maybe sustainable in a pandemic
Yeah.
that you're going through. So things like that is really, we don't even have the answers for currently. Maybe the banks don't even have it, because we all are very hopeful, thinking that this is a glitch in the system and it's going to be over in a couple
Yeah.
months and we're all going to go back to normal. But realistically, even, and this is the trickle down effect too, with all of these things that we talk about when homeownership comes to play, or your finances, because we want everybody to feel like they can survive this pandemic, right? That's ultimately the game. And even some people are thriving during it, which is fantastic. We love to hear those stories. So please ask us those questions, keep them coming. Any stories you want to share with us, we'd love to hear them. And if you had a good experience with the vendor take back, please, leave it in the notes, and we can share that with everybody, because this is something, we're all in this together.
Yeah. And we just try to give you some options, because remember, if you do really want to do that, put a plan together. And if you don't have the perfect credit, we can help you get in the market some way or another, right? There's always a way to do it, but you gotta be organized. You gotta know what your income is. Hopefully you are adapting to these new circumstances and looking for another source of income if your income has been affected with your current job. I know everybody is looking to do something different because it's a different time. So we have to adapt.
Yeah. And it's just a side note. I know we got to wrap it up, but the side note too is really interesting, because if you're lucky enough to have a big property that you can, let's say, rent out your basement, I have heard of stories of people turning their basement into a commercial kitchen and cooking and baking for their community. And they actually make more money than the monthly rent that would generate.
Exactly.
So there are lots of options. We always want to tell you, think outside the box. Now's the time to be creative, people.
Absolutely.
It's a great time.
And if you do have any hobby that you may wanted to, do for a long time, this might be the great time. If you do have the space, you may want to convert that into a workshop, something that somebody else can come and use it for the same purpose. Like, for example, Colette does pottery. So something like that, if you have an area that you want to convert it into, and you have the tools and you can get somebody to rent it for the day to come and do their stuff, you can make money that way as well. So that's another way.
Storage, like, I have this big giant garage. I mean, it's full of stuff now, but if I really needed the income, I would say, to I'd send out a little flyer to my neighbors and say, hey, if anybody needs a storage space, it's secure, it's locked, it's clean, it's dry.
That's right.
For whatever temporary or permanent, whatever, a couple $100, easy.
Yeah. So remember, there's always options. Talk to people that you trust, and that if you don't have a way to do it, just let us know. Maybe we don't have the answer, but we can always, brainstorm and find out a way. We also have other professionals like mortgage agents, mediators, paralegals. We have all sorts of people that can help as well if you do have an issue going on. So just let us know. We're here to just give you options. And I think that a vendor take back would be something really good for someone that does not have a lot of credit, and also for the seller if they want to generate some income. One thing that I wanted to mention about that, and that I forgot about it, that is also good for the seller. If a seller does not want to be a landlord because haven't had a good experience, or because they don't want to take care of maintenance, the vendor take back automatically makes the buyer responsible for the maintenance of the property. So you basically got a really, really good renter that you don't have to, make sure that the stove broke, or the fridge is not working, or there's a flood. They will take care of it. So that is another good thing.
I think it's a great idea. I really like that idea. And, it's something that we really should be talking about this. And I'm really glad we brought this subject to the forefront today. So again, if you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to ask or comment, and we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so that's great. So, next time we're going to be here, and I believe that we have a mortgage broker coming to talk to us about some other subjects that are interesting for you.
And I think it's really, this is the time to not stress out and to panic. There's, what did we open this conversation with? You always have options.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, until next week. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.